7:30, OTB AM, you're welcome along to the show. Oh, what fun. Shane, good morning to you.
Good morning, how are things? Happy Friday.
Colm, good morning to you.
Adrian, Shane, good morning.
What's happening?
Listen, do you know, lots going on. Thank God for the Champions League.
We've a suite of stuff to talk about at the top of the show, and we've a busy show coming up after that, of course, as well. But the stuff we have to talk about, and you can jump in here wherever you want. Shane Long had some interesting, really interesting and forthright things to say about his, let's call it, treatment under Stephen Kenny. Tottenham are the latest club linked with Evan Ferguson. We had Chelsea-Lyon last night in the Champions League. Really interesting game that Chelsea somehow, despite being a goal behind with almost the last kick of the game, managed to force a penalty shootout and come through on the right side and go in to meet Barcelona now in the semi-finals. And Padraig Harrington, lowest round of the PGA Tour for the last 2 or 3 years, at 68 at the Texas Open, and tied for the lead after the first day. So whatever you're having yourself there, where do you want to jump in?
I think we got to go with Chelsea, don't we?
Yeah.
Come into that game, very, very late finish. Looked like Leon, the holders were going through, 2-0 up in the night, and then a penalty. Was it soft? We started our pre-show meeting this morning. Just being behind the scenes. Was it soft? Lauren James had the ball in the penalty area. She was veering left out towards corner flag, had 2 Leon players around her. Was, I would say clipped, and then almost fell over herself and fell over. And when you look at it live from the wide shot, it looked like, no, that's almost a dive. And then you watched it in and you were like, oh no, it's a penalty. It's 100% a penalty.
It took me about 10 watches to realise that she had been clipped, though. Because it looks like she kicks her own leg, but she looks to be clipped and then she kicks her own leg.
I think once you see the slow-mo replay, there's no debate about it. In
Absolutely.
real time, watching it real time, I thought, oh no, because actually in that split second before she turned that way, she was been like this by the way was the last second of extra time.
Yeah.
So this was like absolute desperation state
Taking
for
the
Chelsea.
penalties,
They were 2-0 down on the night against Lyon, 2-1 in aggregate, needing the goal to force a penalty shootout. And when James gets the ball, she's sort of shepherded towards the end line. And I thought, oh well, she's absolutely bottled this, and they're not going to create a chance here, which had been the story of Chelsea's night, I must say. They were so toothless. They'd created plenty of scoring opportunities, but just not managed to really get the quality shot away that they might have done, particularly given who they have up front.
Yeah, well, the way Arsenal should have, easily beaten Bayern, I suppose all the chances they created, Lyon should have done the same with Chelsea last night. In the first 10 minutes, the visitors should have been miles ahead. Like, with Chelsea were going into this game 1-0 ahead. But Emma Hayes said afterwards, celebrating the victory, the manager said Chelsea players just lacking confidence at the moment. They're not playing too well. So they had to really get through this, and it was all about perseverance. And how often do you see champions do that, where they're not really playing well in springtime, and yet in summer they have all the trophies?
I know we'll talk in the fire pit later about some maybe sporting phrases we don't like, but can a penalty be soft and also a penalty? Like, are they mutually exclusive? Can both things exist at the same time?
There is a grading, but equally it's either a penalty or it's not. And for me, like, ultimately, while it didn't look like that in the first viewing, once the VAR calls the referee over to have a look at the TV, you know which way this is going. And like, it was a little clip. It was fairly foolish on the Lyon defender's behalf, because she actually just do nothing. She was sort of half shepherding away from goal anyway.
She didn't really tackle her either, though. I mean, like, it is
clumsy.
It is silly that it's clumsy. Yeah, maybe. Like, she got too close to her, but it wasn't even a tackle. It was just James's leg connected with hers. But like, you've seen those penalties given so often these days. It went to VAR, so it wasn't given originally.
Yeah.
So you're talking a few years ago, Chelsea would have been out of the Champions League.
I don't think any
people complain about VAR.
Yeah.
There was also a bit the shithousery out of Lyon around the penalty in extra time was incredible. So Engel and Mielda, who took the penalty in the end, did that trick of, which I've seen recently, but I couldn't remember exactly who it was,
holding the ball,
where Engel held on onto the ball as if, to take all the heat whenever players were coming in.
Trippier did it for Isak at Newcastle.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and then had the last second handed the ball over to Mielda to have the go. But actually what happened at that point was the Lyon players started encroaching into the penalty box and delayed the thing by another about 3 minutes, which was really sort of obviously putting the pressure on the penalty taker. But she managed to hold her nerve to bury it. But absolute shithousery on the...
Yeah. And actually, funnily enough, another pre-show topic today was Phil Egan in the office saying that's exactly what we should talk about in today's fire pit, is the increased S-housery around penalties.
Oh, yeah.
And how frustrating it is that when a penalty is awarded, that it takes so long for it to actually be taken, and it seems to be...
Are we not allowed to say the full expression, is that?
Well, I just said I won one less curse, wouldn't do us any harm. Wouldn't do us any harm.
You're just not as sharp as you normally are, Colm. I feel this morning with Shane, he's a bit like, he's not quite, I don't know what it is. It's just something, there's a slight edge. Like, he's normally, he's witty, he's sharp, he's intelligent. smart.
Are you doing work?
Like all of it. It just feels this morning. I'm not saying he's not still all those things. Just 95% of himself. I feel.
At 7:29 and 55 seconds, I was like, I'm not going to mention it. I won't even mention it.
Oh really? Because you've been banging on for the last 24 hours about how much time.
I won't mention it.
Tell everyone what we're talking about here.
I won't mention it.
No, it's up to you now. If you'd like to mention it.
No, the only thing I want to say is that caffeine addiction is crippling.
Yeah.
It really,
if you'd like to mention it now, go ahead.
And I'm suffering from it right now because I'm having to withdraw. I'm fasting until late morning. I have to get blood tests later on. I can't have anything today. And usually I'd be 2 coffees in now. Or I'd actually be having a coffee as we speak.
You'd be 2 in at this stage?
Well, I'd be 1.5, I guess.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's not great. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is not good at all.
And what happens for the rest of the day?
One more after the show. And then if it's really bad, if I have loads on, another one.
Stop. Well, that's doing you no good at that stage. And these are all machine. Like there's no like none of your Nescafe
Braeburn
sort of
coffee.
Braeburns, full on coffees, yeah.
And
I mean, I love Braeburn coffee, obviously, but 4 of them is a whack.
I had a conversation there with Johnny Ward, who everyone would be familiar with out there, often on the show, and he said there's no such thing as having too much coffee. He believes
that's not true.
Now Johnny Ward he's a loose guy, like, But
that's pretty.
I like.
I mean, I don't want to.
Sometimes I like his ideas.
I used to work with a chef at home in Monaghan who won't be named, but he used to take like maybe 20-25 cups of coffee.
Nevin Maguire.
It wasn't him.
We'll call him Ed Maguire. No, wait, that's too obvious. Nevin M.
Yeah. So I don't know how people do it. Two max for me in a day.
2 max is
two
it?
Max.
Well, before I took this job in this company, I was 1 a day.
1 a day.
You know what I mean?
Wow, so
I've increased my consumption 4 times.
There's a lot to be said for a peppermint tea.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
green tea is apparently a very good substitute.
Is it?
Yeah. Now, I haven't read the comments yet. Are there any comments? But I can feel people are either going to be very on board at this conversation
or move on.
Want us to go back.
I'd say nobody's commenting on it, which is a sure sort of
that's the worst sign, actually.
Dara Toole says that he can't wait for me to answer everyone else's questions once the answers are given in the crappy quiz later. Thanks for your support there, Dara. Actually, what you'll find is what I've taken to doing because of people like your good self, Dara, I've taken to writing the answers down so that I can then say, no, I actually had it here. It's going to be very, there will be a crappy quiz later on, and I'm not going to start pre-moaning about the crappy quiz, but it's coming from a genuine place, you know.
Yeah.
Owen McCarthy has a good slat for us.
What he says?
Off the brew.
Oh, it's not bad.
Don't know what it is. It's like partridge in the pear tree. Don't know what it is. Yes, it's a good name though.
That's not bad.
No, we'd load the sport.
Superb penalty under severe pressure, says Jamie
we actually haven't talked about the penalty itself. Her 2 penalties
both
in the shoot, both same side, different heights. But I mean, to go top left in a 5 minutes into additional time and extra time in the Champions League quarter-final. It's incredible.
I feel we should mention Shane Long as well.
Yeah.
So we'll do that. For anybody, this sort of emerged out yesterday evening that Shane Long had been speaking on the Kay and Ash Share Your Voice podcast. Kay being his wife Kaylee, and he sat down for a conversation about the end of his days with Ireland and how all that has apparently unfolded.
Strong, aren't they?
A lot of stuff, very, very strong words, and he talks about the critical of Stephen Kenny and his man management around this, which I would have always thought seemed to be come to the fore as one of his really strong points, and there seemed to be a lot of logic. Look, you don't know what's going on behind the 4 walls, of course, but he says that Stephen Kenny had a really good idea to bring himself, Darren Randolph and Seamus Coleman in and present jerseys to some of the newer players who had arrived into the squad, and he thought this was a really nice touch. And as they came in, Darren Randolph presented his jersey to Caoimhín Kelleher, Seamus Coleman presented his jersey to John Egan, O'Shea, and these were like high numbers, so they were like squad numbers. And then Shane Long was asked to present the jersey to Adam Idah, which he did, and then opened up the jersey, and it was number 9. And Shane Long feels very strongly that this was not, you have to work. He had to work to get the 9 jersey off after Kevin Doyle retired, and now Adam Idah should have had to work to get the jersey off him, and that there was no conversation around it in advance, and he was fuming. He said it was late in my Ireland career, so obviously when you come into the ranks you get a high number, and then he talks a little bit more about that. Where was the strong stuff particularly?
Towards the end, wasn't it?
This here. Stephen Kenny called me into the squad. I had a little speech saying how proud I was to make my first appearances when he was presenting the jersey to Adam Idah, just introducing them to the team, which I thought was a great idea. And then he mentions Coleman and Darragh O'Shea. And then I stepped up. It was Adam Idah. I was delighted because he's Cork City. He's a bit of a culture like myself, a young guy, big potential. I gave a speech. I held up the shirt, and on the back it was number 9. I remember just handing that jersey over, and I just wanted to storm out of that room. If it was at club level, I would have left. That would have been me gone. I didn't want to take away from Adam. That was a manager making a statement. I rang Kaylee. She was my sounding board, and she was raging as well. Adam hadn't made an appearance for Ireland. He hadn't earned that shirt. It was a traditional way. You had to earn that number in the squad, and to have it taken away, handed over like that was embarrassing and degrading. I spent so many years trying to earn that number. It was one of the lowest, and I didn't want to take away from Adam. Went straight to the kit man and asked him who picks the numbers, and he said the gaffer. It's that bit about being embarrassing and degrading. Very strong.
I can see both points of view here. I understand that footballers have egos, and for a player of Shane Long's experience, wearing the number 9 jersey probably meant a lot to him. As he said there, meant a lot to him to get the number 9 jersey in the first place at international level. But I'm kind of thinking, just, you're an experienced player. It's a number on your back. Get on with it. Just get on with it. Forget about it. It's not that big a deal, really. I understand that strikers have egos, especially. I do understand that. But, I mean, Stephen Kenny did that for a reason. He obviously knows Adam Idah's personality as well. Maybe that he'd get a kick out of wearing the number 9 jersey, and maybe that might push him forward. I don't know. But I think for a player of Shane Long's perspective, whether you're wearing 17, 99 or anything in between, like, it doesn't matter. Just get on with the game. And get on with playing in the squad and being an experienced member of the squad. Sounds like he did that anyway, and he parked it and said, I'm not going to let this ruin my international career, one person. So I think Shane Long had the right attitude about it, but the number on your back doesn't really matter.
When did international players start getting squad numbers?
Well, I think they do, but at the outset of a camp.
No, I mean, they do, but when did that start? Because this wouldn't be an issue otherwise. Because
it used to be 1 to 11.
It's not that recent. It's not that recent, is it?
No, it's not that. Yeah, I was just wondering. There was a time, because if you look at 2002 World Cup, Damien Duff wore number 9 for that tournament.
Yeah,
which is very unusual for an out-and-out winger as he was at the time to play number 9. He did play up front in the tournament, but he eventually got number 11. But it used to just be your starting 11 and then whatever was left over for the subs. So this is the problem when you start giving people squad numbers. Yeah. And also you have to be really careful about who you choose as your number 9 internationally. Was Shane Long ever the proper candidate for number 9?
He did say that players covet their numbers, which I wasn't aware of.
Well,
so you have to take that as read.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a thing. That's just a thing. So we've established that. And in that context, like, I certainly take what you're saying, Shane, but I also think that Shane Long has proven over a long number of years to be a pretty honest broker, and not one of these guys, I think, like you say, like, of good character, I think might be what you would how you would describe that. So I certainly, my initial reaction was, oh, is this such a big deal? But then I just thinking about it a bit more, coming from an honest broker, he's obviously felt extremely hurt by it. Was Stephen Kenny using it as a motivation? If he was, would you not sit down with him afterwards and go, listen,
or beforehand, and say this is the number I'm giving?
Beforehand you lose the motivation, because then you're not delivering the hammer blow. But I do take that point. You could have delivered it beforehand. You could have sat down with him afterwards and said, listen, this is your message now.
What's the hammer blow?
He's taking your jersey. What are you going to do to take it back? And at that point you have a fired up striker who's ready to go, and
you can't be catching him off guard, opening up the jersey and seeing the number 9 at that point.
That probably wasn't ideal.
That's why I think the discussion beforehand maybe is important. If Vinnie Perth said last week he was annoyed, or not annoyed, he was surprised that Evan Ferguson wasn't given the number 9 jersey in the recent window. I think he was given 17. Certainly against 19, Latvia he was wearing, or 19, sorry. Yeah. And Vinnie was kind of bringing that up as a potential talking point. Either the number.
Well, it's pressure. You see, that's the thing. That's pressure again from a Stephen Kenny point of view. You're thinking about what number I'm going to give him here. It's a bit of pressure if you give him the 9 jersey, because, like, if he needs to be dropped in a couple of games, then suddenly it's.
We obviously felt Idah was deserving of it at that time. Yeah. So Evan Ferguson, I mean, is clearly deserving of whatever jersey he wants.
Numbers are definitely precious to elite players, because Edinson Cavani was number 7 at Manchester United in his first season at the club, and then Cristiano Ronaldo came back and he was given number 21.
Yeah,
wasn't happy with it. It's a status thing. It's not actually the number. Oftentimes, I would say, and in Shane Long's case, it's his position in the Irish squad and starting lineup was precarious. And he probably felt that going into that camp anyway. When he was going to do this presentation for Adam Idah, he was probably still thinking, geez, am I even going to start here with all these players coming through? And then the number 9 jersey is switched over. The other way to look around it is Evan Ferguson upset that he's not number 9? No.
Yeah.
I would doubt it.
Yeah, but at different points you're a different person at the end of your career. Like he's saying himself, it was the tail end of his Ireland career. His days were coming towards an end anyway. He was going to be, I mean, I'm projecting a lot of words here, but like he was going to be a bit of a bit part player, wasn't he, for Ireland at that point? That
but he still, Shane Long could still come back into an international squad.
I'm not sure.
Well, no, but Stephen Kenny left it open. I think when he was last.
I think after those words, now that feels like
this feels like the possibly no return. But
I'd say from Shane Long's point of view as well, he's probably looking at a lot of those players that come in. Is he probably looking at that going, am I not at least as deserving a place here as whatever, some of the players that have come in there.
Yeah, and I do understand it from Shane Long's perspective, and I'm surprised by the emotion of the quotes, but as in that he went ahead and said that. So I suppose it's a comfortable setting in a podcast, and you're going to say what you really feel, which is that's the greatest thing about the emergence of podcasts. You really actually do hear from players what they think. But he was very much as part of the Irish setup for the previous couple of years before that happened.
Yeah.
So I understand it from his perspective, and it was a vulnerable position that he was in. But from Stephen Kenny, it was interesting, and I suppose we'll never find out really if it was in his time a challenge to Long.
He will get asked.
Or was it I'm disregarding you? I'm disregarding you.
He will get asked about it. There's no question. And I do get there is a status thing amongst players. When he says embarrassing, I'm sure he means embarrassing amongst his teammates who are all looking at him going, in his mind, oh, but that's your jersey, and now you're literally handing it over to somebody else. So I do get that there is a little bit of, do understand that. Quirky kind of captures it here. He says, I don't think Shane Long would have minded if Kenny had explained beforehand it's not about ego, it's more about communication and culture.
Well, he would have minded. He said that in the quotes. He would have been raging, but at least he would have had time to process.
There was the video last year of when Koulibaly was joining Chelsea, of him ringing John Terry and going, can I wear the number 26? Because nobody had worn the 26 since Terry had left, and it was like, can I please wear it? And Terry gave him his firm blessing.
That's right.
So there's a little bit of pomp and ceremony around the numbers.
That's right.
For some people, and obviously the number 7 jersey of teams like Liverpool and Manchester United has historical meanings.
Well, speaking of number 7, this obviously lends itself to odd numbers and unusual players. Jamie Domican, who starred yesterday with the GMAC request,
of course,
come in again today with
cheers
another belter.
Jamie. Appreciate that.
Matt Doherty wears number 7, which is a crime against squad numbers. That's true. Then you're getting to William Gallas is number 10 for Chelsea. Khalid Boularus, anyone remember him?
Yeah.
For Chelsea, number 9.
But that kind of excites me.
Number 9.
Who cares?
Pretty interesting.
So you don't care?
No.
So why does Shane Long?
Because his teammates.
Again, yeah, it's teammates. It's not the number. It's the and its vulnerability. It's
my birthday's on the 21st, so I used to like wearing the number 21. I used to like players wearing the number 21.
Yeah, and then you wouldn't mind if it didn't become the 21 because it's not like a status thing.
Exactly.
Zamorano, yeah.
With Isolt, Cody, good morning to Isolt. Colm should move to matcha. Caffeine energy without crashing or adrenal glands needing the break. Didn't think this is what I need to be tweeting about today. To what is ostensibly, for the week that's in it, ostensibly a sports show.
It's ostensibly,
we sometimes talk about other stuff.
We do.
Well.
It's important to get the coffee in. But yeah, certainly if there are alternatives that don't lead to the shakes, I'll start getting the shakes after. I'll take one in the morning before the show usually, and then maybe one at about 10:30, 11 out for a stroll after the show.
Yeah.
But nothing beyond that.
I used to get a headache if I wasn't getting enough coffee.
Really?
At that point I realised I needed to go cold turkey for a while.
Yeah. Decaf coffees as well.
Decaf, I must say,
pointless.
I'm reticent to go too hard here, but my natural instinct is, what's the point like? Huh? What's that all about? He's not even listening anymore. The energy has gone so low.
Do the other job.
Did you hear even what I said?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
There was a viral video of the Mayo lad. Was a Mayo lad yesterday talking about the 16 pints?
Oh, yeah.
What's the point in the 2 pints? Well, so you're saying what's the point in
it's a very different take that I'm...
Totally different, but what's the point in the decaf?
I do love coffee and I love the taste of coffee. I love the experience of coffee.
So decaf, you get the taste, no?
But at the same time...
That's a good way to put it.
I don't know...
The experience of coffee.
I don't know that...
Colm's going through it over there.
He's going through the ring. I just don't know. I think when you're drinking it, then you're like, well, I'm not really... You also want to get the caffeine hit, let's face it.
Before I moved to Dublin, I barely looked at a cup of coffee. But it also goes to show that for the last 7 or 8 years, there's been an absolute boom.
We at home.
There's been an
Came up to Dublin, you were like, I'm going to try loads of coffee, like. Is that it? Sorry.
Did they not have coffee down in Cork?
Well, that's what I'm saying. No, but this goes to my further point. Is it just me, or 10 years ago coffee wasn't a thing?
Did you move up to Dublin when you were 18?
Coffee, I can tell you 10 years ago coffee was a thing.
Coffee wasn't a thing.
What age did you move to Dublin at?
Coffee wasn't a thing. Oh.
What age were you?
What age was I?
Yeah.
20.
Yeah, so you like...
5.
Oh, Jesus, right. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
But tell me this, everyone. Is it just me, or is coffee. Coffee was only kind of an instant thing at home. You'd have it in the jar, Maxwell House or whatever you're having. But now it seems in Dublin like every other shop or every other third shop is a cafe. No, like coffee has exploded.
I think that's the same way that when you grew up. Certainly when I grew up, like I had, I had about 4 or 5 meals that I had in rotation for the first 18, 20 years of my life, and then I never had anything else, and then I realised other food exists. Is that the same thing with coffee?
I do think I think it actually coincides at the time that there was a coffee explosion in this country. Johnny Ward, I mentioned him again. He was on there recently saying that he went to Italy and, would be known for its coffee. Not a patch on what you get here. That we've world-class coffee. Speaking of world-class, the coffee here is world-class.
Yeah.
And it's just everywhere. You can't move for it.
The espresso thing I don't really understand, because that's just someone who loves caffeine. That you don't really like the taste of coffee.
There's like you'll probably reach a point in life, Shane, where you're like, you don't really want to consume a whole pile of milk in your diet, where you're actually looking at what you're consuming.
It's true. Yeah.
And so
I think it's an important discussion. Coffee,
Oh wow, look at that comment. It's nice. Nigel Gallagher though. I think this sums it all up.
No, sorry, you won't read it out, Colm, so I'll read it out.
Specialty coffee has exploded.
Bob Dwyer, our friend in OTB AM here, says Colm is the Moussa Dembele of OTB AM. Doesn't get the credit he deserves, keeps things ticking over, and has well-rounded sporting knowledge akin to Dembele's ability to beat the first press. That's a nice comment. Spectre Core says we have the Parchi Sung of coffee, which would be the top tier coffee, obviously.
It would
What's
be
the world 11 of coffee
class,
brands?
top tier.
I know a man who likes coffee.
Yeah, good segue. 7:52. Colm, thanks a million for, especially so this morning. Myself, Jim, and the audience very much appreciate you making the effort, because that must have been very hard for you.
It's the show I love. It's what I do.